With just 118 days until the midterm election, we continue to report on a very violent summer in America and around the world. All this while Joey B takes a victory lap, changes whose fault our problems are, and continues to read everything on his teleprompter. All of that, plus the news of the day, and Bette Midler, who's just not woke enough. We cover it all on Dale Carter's America.
From the heart of flyover country, he's not on the far right, and he's certainly not on the far left. Like you, he's somewhere in the middle. This is Dale Carter's America.
I'm Dale Carter, he's Kurt Wheeler, and we are here to solve all the problems of the world.
That's right, and we're in a different studio today.
I know,
so.
much bigger, much nicer.
Yeah, I'm not practically sitting on your lap this time. Practically, not literally.
Too bad for you, I guess. The meme board is growing behind us, as you see, as you watch it on YouTube. Tell them all the places they can get this thing.
So, yeah, if you're watching, you can see the new studio setup. It is a little bit different, looks kind of the same, but you can watch us on YouTube or Rumble. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor. And then if you want to keep up with what we're doing, the main place is Facebook. And then we also have Twitter. We're going to be expanding to other platforms.
Got our own website.
And the website, yeah, DaleCartersAmerica.com. We put out the show notes every week, a day in advance. So we're actually recording on Tuesday. The podcast will be released on Wednesday because I have to go home and edit it and all that fun stuff. So, but we'll put the show notes out today. So if you want to see what we're going to be talking about a day early, if you're listening to this now and going back to the show notes, you have some kind of weird time travel ability. But for next week, you can go on Tuesday and read the show notes.
Are you confused? I'm confused. The Dale Carter's America podcast is brought to you in part by my good friend Bob Watson, Blue Springs local State Farm agent for 5 decades at 7th and Main in Blue Springs. You can reach him at 816-229-7878. Auto, home, life, commercial insurance, boats, licensed in Missouri and Kansas. And, of course, you know State Farm. Every insurance company has their spokesmodels, but only State Farm has Patrick Mahomes.
That's right. And Jake, we have Jake from State Farm, except you're not actually talking to Jake. You're talking to a real person.
Yeah, you're talking to Bob or Terry or one of the fine folks at Bob Watson's office.
And you know, you're probably not talking to Patrick Mahomes either, but that's probably good because I don't think Patrick Mahomes likely knows very much about how to help you with your insurance. So
no, but he can fire a spiral 55 yards in the air and hit his target, which we love in Chiefs country. So Bob Watson, if you're looking for insurance here in Kansas or Missouri, licensed in both states, please check him out. A great guy who will take care of you just like he's taken care of me for the last 27 years. 816-229-7878. To the news of the day, and I put this one on top because I thought you'd get a kick out of it. Elon Musk, you may have heard by now, has backed out of his $44 billion offer to buy Twitter.
Well, he's attempting to back out. He hasn't officially backed out yet, but it's funny because
wants to.
The tables have turned. I mean, this whole thing is just hilarious, and I'm beginning to think that Elon is just trolling everybody because he bought shares in Twitter. Everyone freaked out. Then he said he wanted to buy Twitter. Everyone freaked out. All the Twitter executives, were losing their minds. A bunch of people working at Twitter said they were going to quit if he took over the company. Then they went through a negotiation phase, and then they accepted his offer, but he wanted lower because there's this whole thing about bot accounts on Twitter, basically.
Fake accounts.
Especially if you look at like big accounts, even like the president or Nancy Pelosi, things like that have a very large amount of followers, they're not getting nearly as much engagement, meaning like retweets, likes, comments, as accounts with much smaller followings are, because the assumption there being that there's a lot of fake accounts that are following these larger accounts. And so he's trying to renegotiate the price and find out how many fake accounts there are. And Twitter is, dragging their feet or whatever. So now he says he wants to get out of the deal because, he can't find out how many fake accounts there are. But it's the ironic thing about it is that now the tables have turned and now Twitter is going to take him to court to keep him in the deal. So initially they were, very against it. Everyone was freaking out. And now Twitter is in the position where because they reached an agreement, now they're taking him to court to to uphold the deal after they wanted.
And they didn't want to tell him
it.
about all the bot accounts, and now they're going to have to. The discovery phase in court, you've got to show your cards.
Right. Yeah, and if you go follow Elon on Twitter, he had a great meme about it.
I love that meme.
You saw it too? Yeah, it was like, it's so perfect. And yeah, I mean, you can't blame him because you want to. I mean, it's a lot of freaking money. You want to get what you're paying for, and you want to make sure that what you're paying for is actually for real people and not fake accounts.
We could sell him 4 radio stations in Kansas City. It'd be a lot less than $44 billion.
That's true.
And he'd have a lot of fun. I mean, we have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like Elon would be a very fun boss.
He would be. Absolutely. Not that we don't like our boss now.
Right, of course.
Make sure we get that out there.
Of course. He's a fun boss too.
The planet is going to reach 8 billion inhabitants by November. So
really?
We've talked about 7 billion for a long time, but the number is going to click over to 8 billion, they estimate, by November.
Huh.
Going to be a big Christmas.
Well, I wonder where that's coming from because America is, below the reproductive rate, whatever it's called. I can't think of the name of the statistic, but
replacement.
Yeah, replacement rate or something like that. But America is reproducing at a lower rate than people are dying, basically.
Exactly.
And then you have places like India, China,
where they're just doing it like bunny rabbits.
Cranking them out, yeah.
I mean, because China for a long time had a one-child policy.
Right.
And, the Chinese don't mess around. They put out a policy, you better follow it.
Right.
Or else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just think about even India, it's the size of maybe half of the contiguous United States of America.
Right.
It's
and
a big country.
They've got a billion
but
people.
They have a lot of people. I mean, it's a very densely packed country.
Right. So they have a billion people. China's got a billion people. So that takes care of 2 billion of the 8.
Yeah.
So I guess do the math on where the rest of them are. How about the floating abortion clinic? This is new today. Abortion banned in Gulf Coast states. So now there's a plan to build a cruise ship clinic that would be anchored in international waters off the United States to perform abortions.
These people will just go to any lengths to kill their babies. It's insane.
Well,
I mean, okay, whatever.
It's going to continue, and, we'll talk about it when we talk about Biden and President 101 here, but that's just in the news. That just came across the wire today that there will be a floating abortion clinic in international waters. Pennsylvania's Governor Tom Wolf is in the news. He vetoed a bill that would prevent biological males from competing with women in the state of Pennsylvania. He says the bill was hateful, discriminatory, and incredibly harmful. We really should have some women on this podcast just to ask them what they really think. I'd really like to know because they're assuming in the White House that women are pissed off to the nth degree about this abortion thing, and Biden's even saying we're putting abortion on the ballot. And I think there are some other things out there that women might be concerned about, and that is perhaps Title IX. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you're a woman or a girl and you want to compete on the basketball team, and now all of a sudden the governor of Pennsylvania says if there's a guy with a penis out there but he says he's a girl, he gets to be on your team.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea, is that
messed up or is it me?
No, it is. And if you're truly a feminist, which I am not by any stretch of the imagination, but
I like women. I love women.
Sure, but that doesn't make you a feminist, right?
I think I look out for their best interests.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely not a feminist. I can say that. But, you would think if you were a feminist, you would be interested in the best interest of women and preserving, women's causes and things like that. And so how does it preserve women's causes to totally dilute and destroy the definition of what a woman even is? And, you see it in popular culture, too. I mean, I don't know if you saw this. It's probably not on your list, but last week the singer Macy Gray got in hot water because she was on a show with Piers Morgan and said that just because you change your parts, you aren't a woman just because you change your parts. I'll drop the clip.
I will say this, and everybody's going to hate me, but as a woman, just because you go change your parts doesn't make you a woman.
Right.
Sorry. If you want me to call you a her, I will, because that's what you want. But that doesn't make you a woman just because I call you a her and just because you got a surgery.
And then Twitter freaked out. Everyone freaked out. I'm sure her record label was coming at her saying, hey, this is probably not a good look if you want to continue to make records and make money. So about 3 days later, she went on one of the morning shows and just made a groveling apology.
Walked it back, huh?
Groveling apology.
there was a wave of backlash that came as a result. Just tell me where you are right now on that statement.
Well, I never, of course, meant to hurt anybody with what I said. I'm actually a huge. I think it takes a lot of courage to be yourself, to go out in the world and be honest about who you are. And so I think anyone who is in the LGBT community is a hero and sets an example for all of us with that, you know. I've learned a lot through this. Mm-hmm. So I think that was one of the reasons it might have happened. Just it was a huge learning experience for me, and I just have a compassion for you know what I think you can, like I said in there, you can call yourself what, like you whoever you believe you are, mm-hmm. and no one can dictate that for you or take that away from you. You know,
it's sad to see the level of control that the culture has over people, and that, you know, you just have to totally fall in line, lockstep. Doesn't matter how idiotic, how ridiculous the idea is, you know, you just have to follow it.
Well, Arizona's in the news, and you may like Arizona's governor better than you like Pennsylvania's governor at this point. First of all, they're being sued by the Justice Department over requiring proof of citizenship to vote. Now, you have to be a citizen to vote. That's in the law.
Right.
But I guess they just want to take your word for it. And Arizona says, you know, we're right on the border. Perhaps it might be good for us to have people prove that they're a citizen before they can vote.
Yeah. Then that's coming from the Department of Justice?
Right.
And that's Merrick Garland.
That's Merrick Garland. So
I mean,
they're suing the state of Arizona over this. Apparently, Merrick Garland, if I could paraphrase what he might say about it, he would say this is hateful, discriminatory, and incredibly harmful.
Yeah, right.
That may be the phrase of the week here.
Are those legal definitions? I would like to ask him that. Are those legal definitions? Can you define what those mean in legal terms?
I have no idea, but this is the other side of the coin in Arizona. The governor there signed the most expansive school choice bill in the nation. Now, every child in Arizona will get scholarship money. I don't even know where this is going to come from, but $6,500 per child for private education or homeschooling. I guess they're going to take it out of the funding mechanism for schools.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. I mean, that's how it should be everywhere, as far as I'm concerned, is more of a voucher type program where you pay, you know, your local property tax, mm-hmm. or your county tax, however it works.
You were a teacher at some point.
Yeah.
In the public school system?
Yeah.
So how, as a public school teacher, former, you know, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, the school that I taught at was not very good. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, and then also just seeing in popular culture, and then in knowing, you know, kids that are in high school and things like that. I mean, it's just going south fast. It's getting worse and worse. And you have this diversity, equity, and inclusion, you know, white guilt bullshit in schools. Like in every school now, you have gender ideology in every school. You have more and more indoctrination and less actual learning about things that should be taught at school happening every year. It just keeps getting worse and worse. So the only way that I see to really combat that is to encourage competition in the marketplace of education. And to do that, you need to free up access to charter schools, private schools, you know, Catholic schools, or homeschool, you know, however people see that the best option is for their kids. So the way that it should work, in my opinion, with school vouchers and things like that, you take the money, you know, it costs, depending on where you live, it costs a certain amount per child to send them through school. You take that money, you give it to the parents as a check. If they want to send their kids to public school, then there's no difference. They send the check to the public school, they send their kid to the public school. If they want to use it for homeschooling, they can use it for homeschooling. Because what you have right now is a financial disincentive for people to homeschool their kids, because they are paying the money in taxes that goes to the public school, but then they're not sending their kid to the public school. So then they still have to pay for all of the resources and everything that they need to homeschool their kid on the side. So you're essentially paying double instead of actually getting your tax money and being able to use it how you see fit to educate your own child.
Well, the NEA is going to squeal like stuck pigs over this. When you were a teacher, were you forced to be in the NEA?
I was not.
Okay. My former father-in-law, who taught in Illinois, was forced to be in the NEA, mm-hmm. and he hated it. But that you know, the NEA is, by and large, one of the big reasons why our schools are suffering, because they become so mediocre. You know, it's the lowest common denominator And I think you're right. We'll see what happens. This is a test case. This is what we love about federalism, that we've got these 50 laboratories out there doing different things. Arizona has really stepped out on this. And my guess is this is going to end up in courts, and we're going to see where it goes from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Arizona is not the first state to do the school choice thing, but I hope that it's successful for them. And then as far as the other thing, too, with DOJ, I mean, this Merrick Garland guy is just, his track record is terrible.
He could have been a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah, imagine if he was. I mean, we can shit on Mitch McConnell all day, which we do and we should, but he has done some things that are worth praising, and that is one of them, not letting Merrick Garland be appointed to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
We have him to thank for that, and without that, we wouldn't have the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We wouldn't have 3 appointments from Trump. We would have had 2 appointments from Trump, maybe even 1 appointment from Trump. So that's a big deal. But Merrick Garland, man, I mean, from calling parents at school board meetings domestic terrorists to saying that white supremacy is the largest domestic threat that we face in our country, to now this with, finding out who legal citizens are who are supposed to vote, to not doing anything about people illegally protesting and threatening Supreme Court justices at their house. I mean, what is this guy doing? He's a total political pawn for the left. It's obvious.
And I saw a couple of clips. I don't watch The View. I can't imagine anybody watching The View. Those women, I mean, good Lord. Can you imagine being married to them? Of course, I think a couple of them don't marry. They would be married to other women. But that aside, I mean, can you imagine living with these women? They're basically saying, suck it up, Kavanaugh. Right. Suck it up. I mean, who cares if somebody comes at you? Okay, there was an assassination attempt, for God's sake. These are justices of the Supreme Court. There is federal law that protects them from, at their home. You can't go protest. We've talked about this before. Yeah. Do we want to descend into some banana republic where judges are intimidated into making decisions one way or the other? And here's the other side of that. Do we want to start sending people who think the way we do to the other 3 justices' homes and start protesting in front of their homes, start heckling them when they're having a dinner somewhere?
Yeah, well, we've been over this so many times, but it's obviously the ends justify the means. They're doing this because they disagree with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and they want abortion enshrined in law up to the point of birth. That's the goal. And they'll take any route that they can to get there. So obviously, you're correct. Like we had Obergefell 7 years ago or whatever that quote unquote legalized gay marriage from the Supreme Court. You can bet your ass that if a bunch of conservatives went to Ruth Bader Ginsburg's house after that decision and started protesting and started threatening her, the DOJ, Merrick Garland, if he was in power, would have been right on it. They would have been putting people in jail. They would have been investigating. We would have had January 6th style committee hearings all over again. So, I mean, it's blatant. Anyone who doesn't see the hypocrisy and the double standard now is just simply not paying attention.
I mean, if you want to heckle and harangue somebody, harangue your member of Congress, because that's where this thing rightfully is. Mm-hmm. It is now in the legislative sphere.
Or your state rep,
exactly.
Because your state is going to ultimately determine what happens with your quote unquote right to abortion. So if you're concerned about it, then go to your state rep, talk to them, go to your mayor, go to your city councilman, or what have you.
Well, there could be a federal law that comes out of this. So the anger is misplaced because the Supreme Court is not going to, because you harangue Brett Kavanaugh at Morton's while he's trying to eat a steak dinner.
Right.
He's not going to run back to the Supreme Court and go, shit, man, we should go the other way on this. It's too late for that.
Well, he didn't do it when they literally tried to kill him.
Right,
so
they
he's
tried
probably
to kill
not
the guy.
going to do it if you go to the steakhouse.
I'm telling you, what is becoming of this country? So that is where we are right now in the news. Before we have a deep dive on a couple of topics, gun violence, which continues, and a category I've called President 101, which sounds like a lot of fun, like you would get at Funhouse Pizza. If you were going to go have Funhouse Pizza, you'd want to have fun.
Absolutely.
And the fun is in Lee's Summit and Blue Springs, 50 Highway in Lee's Summit, and on 7 Highway in Blue Springs. And I talked to Jim Dingman, who owns both, because he said something to me about they were going to give away George Strait front row tickets. And I said, well, we're going to mention that on the podcast. And I emailed him that, and he goes, We gave it away yesterday. So if you went to Funhouse Pizza and said, where are the George Strait tickets? They were already gone. But Jim Dingman assured me that there are going to be a lot of giveaways coming up, Chiefs type stuff. He really loves doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's always some fun giveaway at Funhouse Pizza.
That's funny. You know, I had a feeling when you mentioned it on the podcast that it wasn't going to happen or something weird, you know, but
he's hard to nail down because he travels a lot.
Yeah.
You know, he likes to go to golf tournaments. And he's always like in South Carolina at some condo or something. It's like, who's running the pizza place?
Yeah. Well, I remember I showed you this. It was like the first or second week that we had him on as a sponsor. And I texted him and I was like, hey, you know, what do you want us to talk about on next week's podcast? Yeah. And he just sends me a picture of a golf course.
Well, the Masters.
And that's it. He didn't say anything.
And you didn't even know what it was. I mean, it was like Amen Corner at the Masters. I mean, a big deal. And
I was
he
like, okay, I guess I'll try again later.
All right. So, Jim, thanks so much for believing in the podcast here and having great pizza at Funhouse Pizza in Lee Summit and Blue Springs. All right, gun violence, obviously it continues. And I want to do a deeper dive here because there is a certain demographic that seems to be doing a lot of the shooting, and you're closer to that demographic than I am. I'm painfully aware of that you're closer to it than I am. But let's start with what's going on. The president just took a victory lap over his quote-unquote historic bipartisan gun bill. Did it save any lives?
I don't think there's any way of
Will
measuring
it save
that.
any? Well, I don't know.
How would you even measure that?
Deaths continue.
Yeah.
You know, and I've got a whole list here. And it's not just the United States. It's worldwide because, you know, the fiction they used to sell us was this only happens in the United States.
Right.
The rest of the world is peaceful.
Right.
Nobody ever does anything out there. Okay, July 3rd, Copenhagen, Denmark, right?
Yeah.
Very peaceful country, right?
Yeah.
Somebody walked into a mall, shot 3 people, and injured 3 others. Denmark? Really?
Yeah.
Shinzo Abe, the former leader of Japan, assassinated on July the 8th. Again, Japan with the world's strictest gun control.
Yeah. And the guy basically like made his own gun.
He made it.
Which is, I mean, it's crazy have you seen the pictures of it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like all taped up and everything.
Yeah.
Basically, my understanding is, because I'm kind of a gun nut, so this stuff interests me.
Yeah.
He had like 2 metal tubes. It was kind of a shotgun style thing, right? So he had 2 metal tubes, and then there's batteries on the bottom, and then there's some kind of electronic ignition mechanism that ignites the primer. But I don't even know if he had actual shotgun shells or if he homemade those too. I don't really know. I'm assuming he made homemade shells as well, but it's pretty crazy. I mean, if you see the pictures of it.
This gets back to something that I've always said and I've always believed. If you really want to do harm to somebody, there's no law on the books that's going to stop you from doing harm to somebody.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened here. And then on top of that, just a little aside here, the morning it happened, you know, I'm on the air and we're talking about the story as it's breaking. First of all, he was shot around midnight East Coast time in the United States. Joe Biden did not weigh in on this for 9 hours. 9 hours. Former President Trump did, Anthony Blinken did, and then, of course, National Public Radio, our tax dollars support NPR. I just want to read the lead, okay? The lead.
I know exactly where this is going.
The guy has just died. He's just been killed, okay? And I don't really know much about his politics. Do you?
Very little.
Longest serving prime minister of Japan. Okay. Dateline Tokyo. Former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, a divisive arch-conservative and one of his nation's most powerful and influential figures, has died after being shot during a campaign speech.
I mean, there's so much in that one sentence.
A divisive arch-conservative. Okay.
And they also say has died after being shot, not was assassinated.
Yeah.
Which also tells you something. They're trying to destigmatize the killing.
Yeah. Police arrested the suspected gunman. I mean, he was there and he did it.
Right.
They've got it on video.
It's all on video. Yeah.
Allegedly, right?
Yeah.
At the scene of the attack that shocked many in Japan, which is one of the world's safest nations and has some of the strictest gun laws anywhere.
Yeah. Well, there's something else actually about that video that's pretty interesting. If you watch the video, So again, this guy has this homemade shotgun with 2 rounds in it, basically, that fire separately. And he shoots once and he misses. The first shot misses. But because that, Japan doesn't have this like culture like we have where everyone is scared of everything all the time. Like, we talked about the thing in Philly where there was like a couple gunshots and during the fireworks thing and like thousands of people chaotically running down the street. So this guy is standing there next to Abe, who's giving a speech, fires and misses, and everyone just stands there. Like nobody knows what happened, like nobody reacts. And then he shoots a second time and hits him. But it's just, that was one of the more interesting things to me. But the NPR story, they actually changed the headline from, what was it, ultra conservative or something like that?
Arch conservative.
Divisive
arch conservative.
Yeah, they changed it from arch conservative to ultra nationalist. So I don't know which one is supposed to be worse. But
what pisses me off is my tax dollars support this. Your tax dollars support this. Why in the world do we need a taxpayer-supported MSNBC? Because that's essentially what they are.
It's a great question. I mean, they're arguably worse in a lot of ways, but yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it takes me back to remember when not Soleimani, but one of the other Al-Qaeda leaders or something was killed under either by Trump or just had died during Trump. And on the headlines were like austere religious scholar. Do you remember that one?
Vaguely. Yeah. I try and tune those things out because they make me so mad. Okay, I off track here. So Abe assassinated on July 8th. South Africa, July 9th. Bar shooting, 15 dead. July 11th, Westport, Kansas City. Right over there, 1 dead, 5 wounded at a bar shooting. And by the way, guess where the Pharaoh was when this went down?
I thought you were going to bring this up, and I wanted to talk about this because I posted it on the Facebook page yesterday.
He was in Washington, D.C. with his president, Joe Biden, taking the victory lap and asked for comment about it. He said, guns are so readily available and we need better background checks and all that. So he's taking a victory lap for a law that was passed that won't do a goddamn thing to save people. It's just another feel-good piece of legislation. And he says, well, we need more. We need more legislation.
And he went on CNN, too. Did you watch him on CNN with
I
Jake
saw
Tapper?
that you posted the clip, but I haven't seen it yet.
So I can summarize, and we'll drop maybe a couple clips of it here. But
you'll need to summarize in about less than 2 minutes.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, he went on and he talked about all of the things that the bill passed. The only thing that he said that you and I could possibly agree with was that, because Jake Tapper actually asked some real questions. He was like, well, Kansas City is like 4th, in the nation, or Missouri is 4th in the nation for gun deaths or whatever. And so, he said that we should be prosecuting people who commit gun crimes.
A 2019 report from the U.S. Sentencing Commission says 68% of gun offenders will be rearrested for a new crime within 8 years. Some people say that a real solution should be locking people up if they commit a crime with a gun, which might in many ways go against the idea for criminal justice reform. What do you say?
I think that anyone who supports criminal justice reform does believe in locking people up who commit violent crimes with firearms. I don't know a single mayor in the country who is saying that I don't think somebody who's shooting up a place needs to walk the streets days later. And I think in some ways that's been a distortion of the political argument. When you talk about criminal justice reform, you're trying to make sure that people who are committing small level offenses, marijuana, all types of other things, aren't running into prison for a long time. But people who are shooting people, who are killing people, who are harming them are a very real problem. And I think you can have reform, but also responsible approaches to how you do it.
On his post, I was like, so what are you doing about that? I mean, what are you doing in Kansas City to increase punishment for people who commit gun crimes? Because I'm not aware of anything. I'm aware of people getting out on bail and shooting people.
Right.
I'm not aware of anything being done to increase, prosecution for gun crimes. And then the other thing is he talked about the other thing that really caught my attention.
Statistics do show that most gun deaths are from handguns, though, not from these long guns. So Why a ban on assault weapons and not on handguns?
I think when we look at how we can be practical with it, there are so many handguns in our communities. We do believe that responsible legislation can help. Concealed carry permits being required, which was something Missouri had when I was a kid, but that we've gotten rid of because we want to make sure that everybody can walk around with a gun without any investigation.
The truth kind of comes out in the details, which is that they want to ban handguns too. They just don't have the political capital to do that.
They want to ban all guns except for cops and military, and they're probably squishy about that too.
Yeah. So yeah, he says, that we're not going to ban handguns, but we should ban assault rifles because they're weapons of war, right?
But on assault weapons, there's absolutely no reason. There's not a hunting reason. There is no reason. You need a weapon of war to go about your day. And in states like mine, ones where you don't need a permit, where you're really not going through checks in all purchasing situations, and more than anything, where we're seeing them used in more and more criminal incidents.
Yeah. And it's just like, I posted this from my personal page on as a comment on his post, but what is a weapon of war? Aren't all weapons of war?
Yeah.
Don't they have handguns in war too? Like, what are we talking
Biden says
about?
that too, and I made a note of that because that irks me. Because he says, the Second Amendment's fine, but you don't need a weapon of war to go hunting. And, I know Biden was just a little boy when they did the Constitution back in the day and the Bill of Rights. But, they came out of a war with Great Britain. It had nothing to do with hunting.
Right.
Okay. It was about making sure that you could call up your neighbors or whatever if some tyrannical government, which I hate to be the black helicopter guy, but there's evidence all around us that our government's getting more and more tyrannical.
Absolutely.
Okay. Has nothing to do with hunting.
Right. Yeah. I mean, anyone who says that the Second Amendment is about hunting just has no idea, no concept of history whatsoever. It's just laughable. It's literally to defend the use by citizens of weapons of war. Again, what is a weapon of war? Every weapon is a weapon of war.
Well, you weren't allowed to have a cannon back then.
You were. You literally were. Not to get too into it because, I nerd out over this history stuff, but I know you're a history buff too. Look at the Revolutionary War. Look at the War of 1812, right? The Star-Spangled Banner, Francis Scott Key, the Port of Baltimore. We did not have a navy in 1812. And what we did have was very loosely organized and very small. We defended the Port of Baltimore in the War of 1812 with privateers. That would be private citizens with fishing boats, commercial boats with cannons strapped to them. That's how we defended against the British reinvading our country. That's where the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, that's where that comes from. So yeah, they had cannons, they had weapons of war, literal weapons of war, the same technology that the British government had, we used to defend our country and to defend our independence. So the whole idea is just ridiculous.
To follow up the Highland Park shooter, a younger guy, was he 21? Is that what the age was?
I don't
somewhere
remember.
around there.
Yeah.
Legally purchased 5 guns despite raising red flags, and it just makes me wonder. What's the point of the red flag laws? Again, Illinois is saying they need more laws on the books. You've got laws, and they failed.
Yeah, and it's just it's a red herring. And we've talked about before the dangers of red flag laws. Using it to punish political opponents, which is what I think it would do at the end of the day. New
York's got that new law that Hochul just signed that basically says we're going to look at what websites you go to.
Exactly.
That's chilling.
That's where this is all going. That's where the red flag law, the direction that it's going, especially in the age that we live in where everything, you leave a digital footprint everywhere that you go, or a fingerprint, people can, the government, if they wanted to, they could go in and see your, online chat history, see all the spicy messages and memes that you're sending to anyone else, and then determine your ability to defend yourself based on that. So we should not allow that under any circumstances. Okay,
well, one more thing here, and then I want to get into a deeper dive on what you think about what the root causes of all this are and what we ought to do about it. The NRA tweeted that 94% of mass shootings since 1950 have happened in gun-free zones, Well, the Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, couldn't leave that alone. He had to come back. I mean, I feel like I'm watching, a Pee Wee Herman film. I know you are, but what am I? I know you are, but what am I?
Right.
He says 100% of mass shootings happen with guns. I mean, really? I mean, how helpful is that? That's not helpful at all. So
that's like saying that 100% of car accidents happen with cars. Yeah. And?
Okay, so
what?
Young people are killing people.
Yeah.
That's what's happening here. The mass shootings, by and large, have been young white males in the bigger cities like Kansas City. The shootings are black on black, and it's typically young male blacks killing young male blacks. Why?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? Because we've had guns for centuries.
Well, there's kind of big picture. I would say that there's two separate things going on. One, you're talking about sort of the inner city problem, which I view as related but separate. So we have like cultural issues, right, in our inner city. We have gang violence. We have glorification of degeneracy and hating the cops and all of this stuff. I just saw a video yesterday on Twitter, and I'll post it. Language warning. It is a little kid who's probably 4 years old, and the cops are there for some reason. And this little kid comes out in his underwear and starts cursing out the cops and hitting them.
Shut up, bitch! Shut up, bitch! Why you pushing that little kid? It's a big donkey head. Shut the fuck up! Person's that don't look like this. You got the ugly ass church shoes like that. I'm frying his ass. His deep fried Oreo head ass. I said, when I put one of them in a fry pan, they ass gonna burn.
Where do you think that comes from? That is taught. That is not inherent. That is being taught to kids in the inner city and elsewhere, but particularly in the black community in the inner city. That's a huge problem. It leads to violence. It leads to disregarding human life. It leads to gangs. It leads to everything else. So we need to deal with that. And it's being committed with illegal guns. The other problem that we're dealing with is this sort of glorification of the mass shooter, right? Because they always have the manifesto that they come out with. They know that it's a soft target. They're trying to make a name for themselves. A lot of these kids, which they are, or young men, are on psychotropic drugs, SSRIs for depression or whatever else. That's something that we should be looking at. Not saying that we should ban people who are on those drugs, but there is a correlation there, and so we need to address that too. We need to address, the cultural rot in this country, which I think is leading to all of these things. It's not the guns. The guns are not the problem.
They've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
Video games.
I don't know.
Maybe, no.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I play video games.
I do too.
A lot of my friends
and
play
I've never
video
shot
games.
anybody.
Yeah, and but I have a grounding in reality.
Yeah.
I don't just play video games. I go outside. I have a job. I hang out with my friends.
Yep.
I do other things. So maybe that's something. But it's just and then we've talked about this before too. But the way that we look at guns now, they're scary. And people go out of their way when they want to commit these things to go for the scary black rifle because they know that it's going to create a national conversation around, AR-15s and assault rifles and all these things because we're not teaching ourselves and training ourselves to be familiar with firearms like we have for the entire history of America, And that, I think, is a problem too because when you alienate something, you become afraid of it. You don't. I mean, the gun control people, they know nothing about guns. So I think that educational aspect of it, too, has something to do with it.
The other thing I wrote down here is that, and I think we may have talked about this before, but I think we ought to seriously take a look at going back to what Giuliani put in place in New York, which was the broken windows policy. Because right now, what's happening in bigger cities is they're letting all this stuff go.
Yeah.
And if you let a criminal do this, they're going to do that. Right. They just continue to spiral upward. And then you've got prosecutors, as you made that point, who basically are turnstiling these people. They're back out on the street before you know it. So the enforcement really needs to step up.
Yeah. And again, what is Mayor Lucas doing about that?
Well, he's in D.C. doing the victory lap with his buddy Joe Biden. I don't know if he thinks he's going to get appointed to something or whatever, but he's really trying to raise his national posture.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, that's obvious in terms of all of the trips that he's making to D.C. He's buddy with the Biden administration. He's going on CNN, which, I mean, CNN is a joke. He's a joke, so it's fitting. But
well, he's up for re-election, too, coming up soon. I think it's maybe next year he's up for re-election. And maybe somebody will challenge him here in Kansas City.
Maybe. I mean, he'll probably
We've had better mayors.
He'll probably get reelected, but that's not for lack of trying. I mean, somebody should obviously go up against him and campaign hard and get the word out and all of that. But he'll probably get reelected.
Well, he thinks he's the next Barack Obama.
Yeah,
is what he thinks. He basically talks a good game if you get him one-on-one.
Right.
But he is as liberal, if not more liberal, than Barack Obama was.
Yeah.
Or Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Or any of these people on
100%.
All right. Before we get into President 101, let's mention again our friend Bob Watson. And, I thought of something here. Before you go on one of these 1-800 numbers and try and get the lowest lowball rate you can get for insurance, you really ought to talk to somebody. And Bob said something to me about this, too. He said that he's had clients who, for one reason or another, have wanted to cut rate, and they wanted to get so low that Bob couldn't compete. Mm-hmm. And he said, before you do that, here's a couple of things I want you to think about. Think about this. Think about Missouri and how Missouri law does this, the local laws and ordinances that you've got to deal with. Mm-hmm. He's somebody, you talk about grounded. He's grounded in Blue Springs. He's grounded in Missouri and Kansas law, and he really knows his stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And, we've mentioned this before, but you get what you pay for.
Absolutely.
And it's not like he's overcharging or anything like that. He's not the most expensive option out there by any stretch of the imagination. You get, as we always say, surprisingly great rates. But, if you're going for the low ball estimate of anything, you're going to get what you pay for. It's like buying, the Walmart brand, computer or whatever.
I'll give you a tour of our studios someday, and I'll show you pictures of what they used to look like. I don't know. Maybe we should cut that part out. But Bob Watson, a great guy, 5 decades worth of covering people like me, and trust me, I've needed him a lot over time, and he knows that too. 7th and Main in Blue Springs, 816-229-7878, auto, home, life, commercial insurance, boats, whatever you've got. Again, licensed in Missouri and Kansas. Bob Watson, our official State Farm agent on Dale Carter's America. All right, President 101. And I know I have said this before, but I'm just going to keep hammering this point. Joe Biden has never run anything prior to being president of the United States. Mm-hmm. Never run anything. He wasn't a mayor. At least Bernie Sanders was a mayor. He actually had to run something and have a budget. Okay, he was not a governor. And we don't really have a test for that, but damn, think about that. The next time you vote for president, at least have the guy have run something.
Right.
Bill Clinton ran Arkansas. Again, one of those states that, show us what you can do. You got DeSantis. He's run Florida, and he's done an excellent job.
Yeah.
You got Abbott down in Texas, has done an incredible job.
Yeah.
Okay, that gives you a track record. Biden has never run anything.
Or even like in the private sector.
He didn't run a company.
Yeah, it could be, obviously Trump was a big businessman. We talked to Mark McCloskey a couple weeks ago. He has a successful law firm. You don't have to be a politician. You just have to have some leadership experience.
Exactly. I've run a radio station for 27 years.
Right.
I've met budgets, and I've had to hire and fire people.
Right.
I mean, I've run something. He's never run anything.
Yeah.
Literally, he's been a backbench senator.
And he still doesn't run anything.
And I don't know who's running it. Okay, so we're seeing what happens when somebody with zero executive experience is elected president of the United States. So we should not be surprised at all. And when he says things that are just so ridiculous, it just proves the point that he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Okay, last week, he tells gas station owners, well, you've got to cut the price of gas. He's never run a gas station. How the hell would he know? Do you know how to run? I mean, do you know what the economic model of a gas station is?
I did do a little bit of follow-up on this, and I did find out what the average profit margin is for a gallon of gas at a gas station. You want to take a guess?
I know it's low.
Is it
3 cents a gallon, 5 cents a gallon, maybe?
It's about 3 cents a gallon. So,
Okay.
and that's with the prices that we're paying now. So
Yeah.
at $4.13, $4.15, whatever it is now in Kansas City, 3 cents of that is profit. So they could totally kill their business, totally shut down their entire gas station by not making any profit,
Right.
and you'd be paying $4.10 a gallon instead of $4.13 a
Well,
gallon.
Paul Hardin is the guy who heads the Texas Food and Fuel Association. And he says, accurately so, that convenience stores make their money inside the building, selling
Right.
sodas and candy.
Right.
They don't control the price of gas. Oil is a commodity traded like stocks well before it ever makes it to the gas station.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that's why you never see a gas station that's just a gas station. You know, they would have a hard time staying in business. I worked for Pepsi for a little while before I came to the radio station, and the biggest profit margin is in like those single serve sodas and stuff that
Right.
are in the cooler. That's the biggest profit margin. So when you buy snacks, when you buy sodas, things like that, that's where they're making, you know, most of their percentage in profit from that stuff.
Just he opens his mouth and he reveals his ignorance. It's the old saying, I think it's a Confucius thing, you know, better to keep your mouth shut and be thought a fool than to open it and remove all doubt.
Right.
Joe
Sounds
Biden,
like Confucius.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris open their mouths and reveal their idiocy on an almost daily basis, and we're not done yet. Okay, so my friend Keys the Clown, you saw his tweet on electric car fuel. That's gotten a lot of engagement on our Facebook
We have
page.
it up on the meme board now, too.
It made the meme board. They're just so accurate and so true that when you see those trains full of coal, you know that they're powering whatever electric cars we have. And again, there's no infrastructure for this. There might be at some point, but there's not right now.
Right.
So what the hell are we doing here? And then I got this report this morning from San Antonio, Texas. This week's electricity woes in Texas are being blamed in part on the state's underperforming wind energy sites. The state's power grid in Texas, powered by fossil fuels, solar, and wind, a combination, right? And the wind power, because there's no wind this week in Texas, is only doing 8% of what it normally produces.
Wow.
You know, the guy who wrote the report says you can't force wind turbines to spin.
Yeah, you sure can. And we've talked about it before, but I'll mention it again. You know, when you see a wind turbine, underneath every single wind turbine is a backup generator that is powered by gas, you know, natural gas or oil. Every single one. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio, because once you build that into the grid, you expect that power source. You know, that's what the grid is. It's not a reserve. It's direct source to output. So when the turbines aren't spinning, they turn on the generators, and that's how you get the electricity.
Powered by fossil fuels. Don't tell them that, because they think, you know, they're doing great things and saving the planet and all that. Okay, so Funhouse Pizza, one of our sponsors. So this is the Funhouse Pizza fun moment of the podcast, and that is Joe Biden reading everything off the teleprompter.
Is this a new segment? Are we doing?
We could.
Yeah, we could.
Drop the clip.
It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are not without electoral and or political, or maybe precise, not and or political power.
So this raises a question for me, because, you know, I mean, and you did your own Biden impersonation, because he gets to the point where it's like, repeat the statement.
Right. Well, that was my favorite part about it, is that he doesn't just read it like he reads it as like an inflection, like like a Biden inflection. You know, he's like, and whatever he's saying, you know, and that's how we're gonna do it. And the line, repeat the message. So it's like, wait, so then that makes me think, wait, is he even like comprehending what he's reading at all?
No.
Like, or is he just reading words and then putting whatever inflection that he thinks should be put to those words? Because if he can just read that last part, that is like the direction that doesn't make any sense, and he's still putting the same inflection on it, then you have to question everything else, right?
Well, his own staff, first of all, they're worried about him. They don't want him to walk anymore in the White House. They want him to shuffle his feet. And I'm not making that up, because they're afraid he's going to trip over a power cord or something and go down.
Where'd you see this?
That was on, I don't know, some report I saw. But that's, you know, look it up.
Okay.
All right, look it up. And they're terrified anytime he gets out of the teleprompter range. That's why they're not doing anything in the real Oval Office, because the real Oval Office is not wired for a teleprompter.
Yeah.
So some staff member, before this whole train wreck ends, I just feel it in my bones, is going to have a Ron Burgundy moment.
Yeah.
You've seen Anchorman.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Classic.
the obvious comparison here.
Exactly. Because Ron Burgundy reads everything off the teleprompter.
Right.
From the entire Channel 4 News team, I'm Veronica Corningstone.
And I'm Ron Burgundy. Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
Ah! What in the name? No! Nobody talks about my city that way! Ron Burgundy's ass is grass!
So there's going to be a go F yourself moment, and we're going to see if Joe Biden will just read that right off the teleprompter.
Oh, God. What I would do to write the copy for this.
It's not going to be somebody like you and me doing it. It's going to be one of his own people.
Yeah.
He's going to be fragged by one of his own people. Oh, man. I think it's coming. Okay, so the latest tweet from the president blames Republicans for obstructing what he wants to do to fix the economy. Now, that's a flip, because I thought it was Russia's fault, because last week he also said it's Russia, 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 Russia.
Well, I think the common theme is just that it's not his fault.
That is the common theme, and how far we've become. Somebody even mentioned this on Fox News last night. I think I was watching Brit Hume or something, and he was talking about how Joe Biden was 1 year old when Harry Truman was elected president.
I thought you were going to say when the Declaration of Independence was written, because you referenced that earlier.
So he was like 1 year old when Harry Truman was president, right? Mm-hmm. That's where the buck stops here. You know, we have the Truman Museum in Independence. Have you ever been there?
Yeah.
They've completely redone it now. I haven't been since they completely redid it.
It's nice. It's
and
really
I want to
nice.
go.
Yeah.
But, you know, you see the sign on his desk, the buck stops here.
Right.
The buck does not stop with Joe Biden.
Right.
When he gets in front of a camera, it's like it's somebody else's fault.
Right.
Not my fault. You know, I'm just
the buck stops with the copywriter of the teleprompter.
Oh, boy. We mentioned this earlier. Biden's putting abortion on the ballot, saying Republicans have underestimated the anger of women. I would agree with him on that he has underestimated the anger of women. I think a lot of moms are pissed that they can't get baby formula.
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of moms out there who have little girls who want to be, you know, WNBA stars, or they want to win an Olympic medal in swimming, who are pissed that Biden is supporting boys with penises being able to compete on the girls' team. So I think women are pissed.
Well, and I mean, not to mention that, you know, the media likes to treat women as this like pro-choice, pro-abortion monolith, which is just not the case. I mean, a very large number of women are pro-life. You know, I mean, it's about 50%. I mean, I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but there's a huge segment of the population that is pro-life women. So, and it makes sense. You know, women are the ones who give birth to babies. They would want to protect those babies, right? Yeah. So this whole idea that this hard left, you know, abortion messaging is going to play out in the polls, you know, for women. I don't know if that necessarily is reflected in reality.
And 100% of women are paying exceptionally high gas prices, and are being subjected to record inflation.
Right.
And seeing their 401ks become a 201k.
Yeah.
100% of women are going through that. So, Mr. President, your challenge is accepted for the midterm, and I'll roll with what we have on our side. I told you last week as kind of a prediction that Biden, after the midterm shellacking they're going to take, will come out and say he's not going to run for a second term. I may be wrong on that, but already
we never put money on that, by the way.
Already you think I'm wrong?
I think they're going to push it off for as long as humanly possible, and then they're going to pull because you said they would pull the Hunter Biden angle, which that's another story we didn't get to.
Well, and that's
the Hunter
out
Biden
there too.
Stuff.
Okay.
But I think that they're going to push it off as long as possible towards the 2024 election, as long as they can, and then they'll come out with something about his health, and they'll push him off to the side for that.
Okay, that's Biden's perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, the push is already happening. New York Times Sunday edition, front page, and they followed it up on Monday as well with the latest New York Times Siena College poll. They have Biden, the New York Times, right? Not exactly the New York Post or Fox News. The New York Times has Biden at 33% approval and 77% now think the country is on the wrong track. 64% of Democrats in the New York Times story want a different candidate in 2024. 94% of Democrats under 30 want a different candidate. You think they're not pushing him off the stage? This is not Republicans. This is Democrats.
Right. I'm not saying they're not pushing him out. I'm just saying that the way that they're going to do it and the reasoning, I think, will be different. But and that's kind of scary. That's a scary poll because especially like the younger people. I mean, and I can speak from my generation, right? And the people that I know. I mean, these people are hard left. So like you think that they don't like Joe Biden because he's too extreme. He's not moderate enough. He's not reaching across the aisle. Hell no.
Yeah.
They don't like Joe Biden because he's not a socialist. He's not, using his pen and his phone to guarantee abortion through the point of birth and everything else. So that just means that they want somebody even more hard left in 2024, which is probably what they're going to get.
Well, they probably will. We'll see what happens there, but I'm not on a very weak limb here when I say that Joe Biden is not going to be the Democratic nominee in 2024.
I think we agree on that. Yeah.
Okay. And the bench is also weak. They want to move on beyond Kamala Harris because we've got a little clip of her latest word salad when she went to Illinois.
We'll deal with what we need to deal with in terms of also as we move forward, all agreeing that we got to be smarter as a country in terms of who has access to what, and in particular assault weapons. And we got to take this stuff seriously as you are, because you have been forced to have to take it seriously.
I mean, is she aware that she does this?
I don't think so. I mean, if she is, it's tangentially.
Yeah.
But in the moment, she's just talking. It's like stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
Like when people write with stream of consciousness or talk, they're not thinking about what they're saying. It's just like pickle, mayonnaise, like it's just like whatever word comes to mind.
Yeah.
And that seems like what she's doing, and she'll just repeat the same thing over and over again, but like inflection with different inflection. Like we need to come together, because in coming together, that's how we will be together to determine the future that we will have together. And it's just...
That's a great Kamala word salad.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the guys on the 5 last night also said she's got to tell whenever she's lying, she starts nodding her head up and down like this.
Well,
and then there's also the giggle.
Yeah.
Gosh. All right. So that's the bench. I mean, and beyond that, you got Nancy Pelosi, who's letting it all hang out over in Italy. You've seen some of that, right?
The memes were too much. I'm not even going to post them.
All right. So we leave you with this. Bette Midler. I mean, the circular firing squad is in. We're just spectators in this, right?
Yeah.
The left, they're shooting themselves. I mean, they've got the circular firing squad going. Bette Midler, who is one of the lefties out there, is hitting back at critics who claim her recent tweet was transphobic. Earlier this week, the award-winning singer and actress tweeted, "Women of the world, we are being stripped of our rights over our bodies, our lives, and even our name." Well, a number of people in the entertainment industry called that tweet transphobic. Mm-hmm. So Bette fired back, "If you want to dismiss my 60 years of proven love and concern over a tweet that accidentally angered the very people I have always supported and adored, so be it."
See, even that is capitulation. She's not, she has like an attitude about it or whatever, but she's still capitulating. It's, oh, well, it wasn't intended to harm anybody. I support them. And screw you.
My second ex-wife, I have to narrow this down a little bit. She used to always annoy the hell out of me with a certain kind of apology. And maybe you'll pick up on this later in your marriage because you're just underway on the whole marriage voyage. I call them if apologies. If I offended you, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah. If I think you're an asshole, I'm sorry.
Or I'm sorry you took it that way. That's another.
Exactly.
That's another.
So watch out for if apologies because they're out there. The correct new term the NEA has approved, back to the NEA, is birthing parent. Mm-hmm. Birthing parent. Now, I'm not a biologist, but I have a mother. Mm-hmm. I call her mom. And I'm pretty sure she's a woman.
Yep. And this is the union that is in charge of teaching your kids.
Yeah.
So homeschool your kids because they're going to be teaching them this in school. If they're not already, it's going to happen very soon.
And in case she is following the podcast and watching it on YouTube, love you, Mom. This is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.